Hey, it's Doug with Backcountry Pilgrim, and I am out here on this lovely day that the weather apps all said would be sunny and cool, talking about whether or not having a hiking YouTube channel is worth it. I thought I would finish off the year 2025 with my thoughts about my first 6 years of Backcountry Pilgrim and what kind of changes I might want to do for next year. Now, obviously, this is going to be a pretty subjective video, but I am going to be giving you some objective facts to deal with in case you're thinking about starting a YouTube video for your hikes, or if you have a hiking YouTube channel and you're not sure you want to keep up with it. Maybe this will give you some food for thought. If nothing else, it'll give you some insight into the life of a hiking YouTuber or a YouTubing hiker. Probably not the same thing. Now, before we get started, I just want to let you know this is not going to be one of those deep, dark, introspective videos where I question my existential whatever. This is a more practical video. There are some things that I'd like to talk about, but I thought it would be kind of fun to search the internet and see what AI had to say about what people are saying, about whether or not it's worth it to have a hiking YouTube channel, and give you my thoughts. Now, I have not read this list yet. This is going to be right off the top of my head, but I hope you will enjoy it. If you start getting bored with one of the topics, look at the content list below. You will be able to skip to the different questions, different thoughts. In case you want to do that, I will not be offended. All right, so let's start with the positives. Number one, sharing your passion. You get to share beautiful trails, outdoor trips, and adventures with people who appreciate the same things you do. 100% agreement. I don't really think that the outdoors is something that a lot of people get to explore as much as they would like. Even I, who get to hike practically every week, there's a ton of stuff I'd like to see, and I love seeing other people having their experiences so I can kind of share with them. I will say as a caveat, however, that I don't really feel like the YouTube landscape is as friendly to hiking and sharing beautiful places as it once was. I'll get back to this when I talk about gear reviews, but basically I think that whereas YouTube kind of started with people doing more travel type outdoor hiking videos, it has skewed very heavily to more about preparation, how-to, and gear reviews. Some of my very favorite videos that I put the most work into were trip videos, trying to show people amazing places that they might not be able to get to on their own or didn't know how, and now they will. And those videos have not done nearly as well as, for example, me walking around with some sticks in my hand. But that is the consumer world we live in. So whether or not you want to play into that, just keep in mind, you're probably not going to get as many views of your actual passion as you will gearing up or preparing for that passion. Number two, community building. Hiking channels tend to develop loyal, supportive audiences who love nature, travel, and adventure. 95% agreement. You definitely don't get the same number of trolls as you probably do on other channels. However, there are hiking and backpacking and camping trolls as well. It's easy enough to mute them, so I don't worry about that too much. But I will say that the community aspect has been great. I have made some legitimate, very good friends that I never would have met if it wasn't for YouTube. I have had some great meetup hikes. I've made some, probably lifelong hiking friends, all because they found me on YouTube or I found them. And so that has been very, very positive for me. Filming hikes can improve your storytelling, videography, editing, and communication skills. Well, unless you're already a professional videographer, editor, etc., I would certainly hope so. I know my videos have come a long way from just standing in front of the camera and hitting record and talking. I've learned a lot of technique and other types of things that make the videos better. I got a long way to go, but I definitely think that personal growth is a good reason to get into it. More of a YouTube thing than a hiking thing though, so let's move on to the next one. Monetization potential. Once your channel grows, you can earn income through ad revenue, affiliate links, sponsorships, selling merch, or digital guides. So here's the rub. I know a few people, I'm friends with a few people that have gone full-time as hiking YouTubers, and they make pretty decent money, obviously, if you're going to quit your day job. I have not. I would say that Backcountry Pilgrim is one of the okayest of all hiking channels. Backcountry Pilgrim's success has seemed pretty great to your average person who doesn't do YouTubing, and it probably seems pretty average to the people who would do a great job. There's never really been like a really bad period. There hasn't been very many fantastic periods either. It's been steady growth, making a little bit more each year, getting a few more viewers each year. Although I have not been paid very many times to make videos, I have been given a lot of gear. So I can definitely say that I have gear now that is way outside my budget, which I never probably would have been able to pay for. And so if you count gear acquisition and the money that YouTube gives out, probably about $1 for every 1,000 views, sponsorships, etc. I have gotten to the point where my channel is basically paying for my hobby. When you think about the equipment you have to buy to do YouTube, the gas for trips, the time you're taking out, the gear that you do have to buy, it's not really worth it as far as being a job. Typically, even the full-time YouTubers are only putting out 1, maybe 2 videos a week max. And so unless they are just getting massive numbers of views, they're not going to get massive amounts of money. Considering all of the things that a job gets you besides your basic paycheck, such as medical insurance, retirement, etc., you have to make a lot of money on YouTube before it becomes worth it financially. And in the hiking, camping, and backpacking world, there are really only a few people pulling that off. So for me, I've kind of hit the sweet spot. I'm making enough money and I'm getting enough free gear that I can keep my hobby going without taking any money out of the family's bank account, and I consider that a success. Physical and mental health benefits. This is just a hiking thing. That's not really a hiking YouTube thing. Travel opportunities. Some creators get invited to destinations or events to film content. Sure, do you even really need those? No. So honestly, the positives aren't looking too great right now. Okay, so let's take a look at the negatives. Time-consuming production. Hiking videos require filming on the trail, carrying gear, editing long clips, writing scripts, voiceovers. This takes significantly more time than many new creators expect. Definitely true. I put a lot of time into these, a lot more than I should monetarily. If it wasn't something I loved, I definitely would not do it. There's pretty much no job you can get that doesn't pay more than what I make on YouTube right now. So this is definitely a labor of love. This is definitely a hobby. It is something that right now I have time for because we homeschool, and the way my work schedule works, I pretty much end up with 1 day a week with my family and 1 day a week where they are busy and I can go do my own thing. So it works out perfectly right now. I can't say that it is worth the day a week that I spend hiking and doing YouTube for the money that I make, but at least it's not costing us anything. Gear costs. You may need camera, mic, GoPro, drone, stabilizer, extra batteries, etc., etc., etc. All of this can get expensive. Yeah, there's an initial investment. I don't think it's incredibly high. I would say most hobbies, today require several hundred, if not at least a few $1,000s to really get into if it's, gear heavy at all. The good news is you don't really need to buy that stuff over and over again. Now, I've dropped a few GoPros and I've had a few incidents that required me to spend more money than I wanted to, but I've definitely made the money back on the gear, within about 2 years of starting. Weather and trail challenges. Well, that's just hiking again. Slower channel growth. Outdoor adventure niches can grow more slowly than viral-friendly niches unless you produce consistently high-quality, useful content. Okay, true. You've got a couple different things going on here. Number one, not a whole lot of people hike or care about gear enough to watch hiking, camping, and backpacking videos. Also, it is a saturated market. A lot of people have channels like this. So you are definitely fighting an uphill battle. So again, if you're trying to make a living doing YouTube, hiking YouTube is not what I would recommend. Privacy and environmental concerns. Filming popular trails can unintentionally bring crowds to fragile locations, reveal sensitive areas, risk wildlife disturbance. Creators need to be careful about location disclosure. Yeah, this is something that you do need to be careful with. Given the difficulty of getting people to watch trip videos, it is often very tempting to try to go somewhere that no one's gone before, which means off trail, to go somewhere more extreme, to do things outdoors that other people aren't able to easily do. And if you're finding hidden locations and revealing secret spots, if you're bringing thousands of people off trail into an area that is going to be destroyed by that many people, that's a problem. And I'm not pointing my fingers at anybody because I myself have done off-trail videos. In fact, I have a whole series called Yosemite Off Trail. Now, I will say, in my defense, I think that 99% of the people that visit Yosemite are just there as tourists, and they're not going to do anything more than walk the standard trails. It takes a very long time to see enough that Yosemite already has to offer on the on-trail side of things before somebody probably really cares about going off-trail. So I don't find that that is really as much of a concern as if I was just going around California showing people secret spots. That I would have a problem with, and it's not something I will personally do. Also, I am very conscious of leave no trace. I follow best practices as best I can. When I do go off trail, I don't think that the wilderness needs to be tamed. I don't think we need to have sidewalks put in order to walk around outside. But I do recognize the problem of having thousands of people walking somewhere, especially when a lot of them do not know how to do it in a manner that is going to maintain the beauty of that place. So I think that's definitely a concern that we need to watch out for. Finally, burnout risk. Turning a relaxing hobby into a constant content creation job can reduce the enjoyment of hiking. Burnout is kind of a special problem that can be caused by the lack of enjoyment. And I realize that a lot of people might think, how could you ever get burnt out hiking? You know, I only get to go hiking a couple times a year. I'd never get tired of it. I don't really think the problem is getting tired of hiking. What you get tired of is having to bring all of your camera equipment and mics and everything and stop your hiking in order to do a film. Now, if you're just filming yourself hiking, that can also get tiring, because you got to remember that unless you've got a camera crew or someone to hold the camera for you, if you want to show yourself hiking somewhere, you've got to hike that portion 3 times. First, you got to stop, set up the camera, get everything ready, and hike the section you want filmed. But then you have to hike back, get all that equipment, put it away, and then hike that section again. So that can be a little annoying after a while. Further, it takes up a lot of time, and so where you might want to do a 10-mile hike one day, if you're YouTubing that hike, you may have to turn it into a 7 because you're going to be taking up a lot of time doing your shooting. And finally, there's just the typical human condition where we tend to not enjoy things that we have to do as much as the things we just want to do. In any area of human activity, obligation tends to lower the enjoyment. And even if it's never enough to not enjoy a hike, the cumulative effect can be considerable. Hiking is not an easy thing. It's already pretty physically and sometimes even mentally difficult, and usually the enjoyment of that hike is what overcomes the challenges that you face. So if your enjoyment is being lowered and you're even not being able to hike as much or as far as you want to go because of filming, that can have an effect on your overall happiness. And one other thing I would point out, it's easy to see filming a hike as full of negatives, and I've just listed a bunch of them, but I will say that on many trip videos, I've actually enjoyed them more in a sense because I'm thinking about, how is this gonna look? What is the most dramatic view from right here? Oh, look at this beautiful thing. I don't wanna forget that. Just like people take pictures of a lot of things they do that they wanna remember, having a full video of your adventure is pretty cool. And sometimes I even notice more when I'm on a content hike because I'm looking around for things to shoot instead of just getting all up in my head and hiking on autopilot. One thing I do want to talk about is a shift that has occurred in hiking, camping, and backpacking channels over the years. It's something that I've kind of seen happen even in my own experience, although I came in kind of late to the game. And that is the transition from hiking channels being primarily about actual hiking to being more focused on the gear that one uses when hiking. Initially, most of your big hiking YouTube people were thru hikers. They were people that were spending months on trail. They had tons and tons of footage. And people loved going along with them on the thru hike because that was something that most people could never do. They just don't have the time, the fitness, the money, whatever. And so watching other people hike thousands of miles was very entertaining. Now, it's only natural that along the way, occasionally these hiking YouTubers would talk about the gear they were carrying. And those gear review videos became very popular because they're very trustworthy. This isn't a person who bought a tent and then slept in it 2 weekends in a row. This is someone who has lived in their tent for 6 months. They know everything about it. They've tested it for longevity. They've tested it in pretty much every way a tent can be tested. And so those videos became very popular hits when you would even just get on Google and look for a tent review, or a shoe review, or a bottle review, or any kind of outdoor gear review. Google was consistently sending people to the thru hiking channels because their gear reviews were super popular. Well, it didn't take the YouTube algorithm very long to figure out that these gear review videos were very popular because they not only were of interest to thru hikers, but just everyday weekend backpackers or non-backpackers who just like hiking or people who just like gear. And as their popularity arose, the gear manufacturers started to realize that when hikers talked about their gear, they were getting a massive amount of advertising for not very much cost. And so it became more lucrative for the YouTuber to talk about gear than show hiking. Well, fast forward 5 or 6 years to today, and now you've got some hiking channels that basically do nothing but talk about gear. The creators literally don't even have to hike anymore, and they can still have a hiking YouTube channel. Now, I am not getting down on people who do gear reviews. Most of my videos are gear reviews, and I love watching gear review videos. In fact, I myself watch more gear review videos than hiking videos. But it has introduced a kind of consumerism that really bugs me. Part of the problem is what I think of as the gear review paradox. Typically, companies are going to really push for gear reviews when they are very first putting out a product because they're trying to generate interest and sales. So what happens is the company sends me a brand new piece of gear and says, hey, we'd like this video to be out in a couple of weeks to go along with our release of the product. Well, that doesn't leave me very much time to really put it through its paces. But even if a company doesn't have a timeline, YouTube is forcing its creators to have a timeline because there's a sense in which we're kind of competing with each other. Now, by competition, I don't mean like a race where there's winners and losers. But what I mean is if I want people to watch my video about this new chair that just came out, I know that if I'm the 15th person to release a video on that chair, it's not going to get as many views as if I'm the first. And when you consider that I have to compete with people who do YouTube full time, it's very hard for me to get the drop on any other YouTubers when I'm doing a gear review. And so the paradox comes that where gear reviews got popular was with people who used the gear so much that they were very trustworthy in their reviews. Now, hiking YouTube content creators are having to push their videos out as quickly as they can, or else they don't get any views. And so the whole review strategy has kind of flipped to where if you wait long enough to put a gear through its paces, especially if you're someone that can only do backpacking a few trips a year or hike a couple times a month, by the time you are ready with your gear review, nobody really cares anymore because 100 other people have already reviewed it, and many times the company has already put out a new model of the thing that you reviewed, and so it is now completely pointless to even make a review video. So there's just a lot of things you have to do to be a successful YouTube content creator that don't carry over very well into the hiking, camping, and backpacking world. People who just want to share their adventures and occasionally talk about gear that they've really tested for years probably are not going to do very well, simply because of market forces and not because of the quality of what they're doing. So if that's going to bother you, you're going to have to figure out a different way to do it. And that's one of the things that I want to work on for next year. I'd really like to focus more on quality content that looks deeper into the art and science of hiking, camping, and backpacking, and not so much just pulling out a piece of gear and talking about its features, basically making free commercial. Again, I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that, but I have just gotten to the point where I have more quality gear than I will ever probably be able to wear out, given my hiking schedule. And rather than fill up my closets with more stuff, I'd really like to focus on what I really love doing, which is not just looking at backpacks, but putting them on and taking them outside. So if you are interested in that kind of content, have a look at these videos. If this one has been of value to you, would you mind giving it a like and subscribe to Backcountry Pilgrim if you are into hiking, camping, backpacking, and the gear that goes with it. Until next time, I'm Doug. Thanks for watching. And right now, I'm going to go on an actual hike.